Security is a very interesting question. And as you grow, you evolve, and you see how your country changes, then you start understanding the gravitas of the word security. So for me, I'd like to begin by saying I need to thank the government of Uganda, and in particular His Excellency the President, because he kept on about the word security and peace, and we didn't fully understand what it meant. But for someone like me, I now fully understand, because I've been around long enough to know how we have squandered so much of our time since independence and have entertained and intertwined security with insecurity over those years. Security is fundamental to everything we do. And the president kept on going on about security, and the youth today don't understand it, especially today who have run out of patience. They feel, no, we've heard about security. Let's talk about other things. We're talking about jobs, we're talking about income. Yes, they're very important. But fundamental is security and peace for everybody. In fact, peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is the presence of justice for all, opportunities, equality. That must be prevalent for everybody. That's what peace is all about. Just because we haven't had war doesn't mean there is peace. Now we're in a war with COVID, and I see everybody with masks and these standard operating procedures. We are dealing with these challenges, yes, and the president described it as a battle. We're at war. But to me, the meaning of the word security is fundamental. It changed my life. I lived in a period where there was a bit of tranquility in the early 60s, because I was born in the early 60s. And then independence, just after independence, we went into a period of turmoil, and the meaning of the word security was taken for granted. And until 1986, that period between 1970 and 86, we had so much insecurity that everybody should understand the meaning of security in Uganda. It should be part of our very fiber, whatever makes us up. So we should never play around with security. It's a delicate thing. It's so easy to lose it and so hard to restore it. And if you doubt me, look at the neighboring countries all around us, from Somalia to Sudan, to South Sudan, to Eastern Congo, to Burundi, and also some time ago in Rwanda. Now they've got security, but they've paid a very high price for their security. So Kenya has been stable. They've had a lot of security issues, but not as deep, not as painful as what we've gone through. Tanzania has largely been secure. What made them different? We're the same people in this region, but the meaning of the word security has got far-reaching connotations. So to me, security is something I don't take lightly. And I think it's important we recognize that the peace and security we have today, what we enjoy today, much as some people feel oppressed and underprivileged, and some people have got more of the other, and it's like Animal Farm, we are not equal. Yes, we are not equal. But largely, in Uganda, we have security. We have peace and security. And every corner, anywhere you go. Last week I was in Arua. I went right up to Vura. I went to the border of the DRC. I went to Nimule. I've been to Tororo, Kisoro. Wherever you go in Uganda, you can drive for a few hours. There's peace and security. And that's very important. Now, some people have taken it a step further. This company, today we talk about Sekanyolya. For 20 years, they have focused on security. Now, that focus, that ability to stay in one business and say, I'm going to address security. And the industry has kept growing for them. They've done exceptionally well. Their name is now synonymous with security. They began with something like razor wires, bringing some innovative things, and they have moved on to cybersecurity, to CCTV. So many things are around security. It's an industry on its own. And in the last 30 years, the security industry has grown monumentally. After 9/11, the world changed. The world order, the way we see security, the way we go through airports, the way we travel, the consciousness of security changed completely. Only 3,800 people died 9/11. But 3.8 million people have died as a consequence after that. That is the difference in how we see security. Just to show you how powerful that word security is and the connotation that comes with it. 9/11 changed the world. COVID has now changed the world. Now it is health security, biosecurity that we are looking at. And it's changing the way we live our lives, changing our character, our behavior. This second wave that is sweeping across Europe is going to rock them if they are not going to change their behavior. They took it lightly. Yes, we've overcome it. It cannot overcome a problem like this so quickly. So other events will come in future. This is not the end of biological threats or cyber threats. So we've got to keep the word security in its reserved place and treat it with the reverence it deserves. It's not something we take lightly. To succeed in business, you must always be or continuously be assessing the risk. That's why we have on our audit committee a committee in a good business that is continuously monitoring and evaluating the risks to the business. Now, whatever threat comes, we've got to be conscious about it. Today, the world order, as I said, will always be, before you get into any big building or hotel, you will be scanned. There's going to be a security threat, something that was not there in the past. That happened because of terrorism and all kinds of activities that have happened. But beyond that, we've got to continuously be looking at people's safety, the product safety, goods safety. All our services, are they safe? The level of safety now at a hotel like the Marriott, the standards have been raised so high for fire, for accident, for theft, for anything that happens here. The insurance levels are so much higher just because the world order has changed and security is looked at so differently. So at the Naguru Skies Hotel, 144 CCTV cameras, 144. And you've got to have a department full-time with staff monitoring 24 hours. Not so much that they'll see something in the 24 hours because it's such a mundane job, but you have the ability to digitally go back to a particular day, a particular time, anytime. And you don't record just for a day or for a week or for 2 weeks now. You've got to keep that record for a year, just in case anything has got to be evaluated backwards. So those are standards that are raised in America, and now we've got to deploy them, the same standards here, where we store that data. We back it up on the cloud, but it's got to be for a much longer time. And you've got to pay for keeping it for a much longer time instead of just removing it. So that's what security is all about. Now, I take security seriously, and the government of Uganda has urged nearly every business now to have a security camera at their place of work. So it's been a growing business. Those who are involved in security, you've got to deploy cameras. Cameras are becoming smarter. They've got to have facial recognition so that you can zoom in and see people's faces and tell this is this person, not just, oh, somebody came here and stole a mobile phone. Who was it? Was it your staff? Or is that thief? Is this a person who has been coming every time? Has he been there to wreck the place? So security has changed completely. It's a continuously changing industry. It's very dynamic. You've got to be positive and planning ahead, not reacting to incidents, so that you mitigate the risks at all the time. So I'm glad that the country has embraced security, and we kept talking about this at different levels. I know at the Presidential Investment Roundtable we talked about it a few years ago, until the president said enough is enough. Crime was running away, and then security cameras are deployed across the country in every major city. Now there are cameras there, and they act not just as a deterrent, but they've been very useful as a tool for the police, but largely as a deterrent. When you look at cities like Rio de Janeiro in Brazil or in Mexico, why is there so much crime? Why is there so much apathy and poverty and drugs and abuse? What happened? They didn't just let this happen. This creeps up on you with the population growth. It's coming. In South Africa, the crime levels are so high, and people kept saying, South Africa was such a good country. What happened? How could it go so wrong? Was it because apartheid ended? No. It just creeps up on you. Rape, crime so high in some of those cities that the city becomes known for that. In Kenya, Nairobi became, the word Nairobi was Nairobi at one time. They've had to work very hard to reverse that trend. Now, Kampala was going the same way. Not that we are bad people or we changed, but it just happens to every society as it evolves. And as you have this huge rural-urban migration, lack of jobs, lack of opportunity, this absence of these opportunities, people's behavior changes. So the government has got to be proactive and invest in infrastructure and find ways of getting the youth involved in day-to-day meaningful purposes, having a life course, a life career, a chance, an opportunity, because their people are there and they've got talents, but they just don't have the opportunity. So I'm glad that the government is moving in that direction. Now, at a personal level, I've had to keep evolving too. My security at the hotel, my security at home, my security wherever I move. It is necessary now to keep upping your game. Don't wait for an incident to happen. If you have to have a bodyguard, it's rare. And it doesn't have to have police people around you and have you. That's not necessary. I don't think we've reached a level where we need to have bodyguards. And then when you're without them, you feel naked. It's dangerous to be like that. But you must watch out for your security. and people, their thinking, their behavior is changing. So it's important that we have companies like Sekanyolya who are at the forefront, that are doing what they are doing and broadening their services, broadening the product range that they're giving, so that people have security at home, whether it's just cameras, razor wires, radio communication, signals, response teams, things that are helping us stay in touch with what's happening in the rest of the world. That's the price you pay for development. So we have to keep evolving, and we have to keep playing catch up. The biggest business risks, I think, happen when, in my years, when we've had change of government. Just before the change of government, and these things happen. I thought that military coups were a thing of the past in Africa. But unfortunately, as we have seen, only in this year, 2020, several coups have happened. I see what's happened in South Sudan last year. In Sudan, I see what's happened in Mali. I see the pressures in some of our neighboring countries. And it's a shame that in this day and age, we are going back to an era of change of leadership in a country by physical force, military might. Nigeria is on the cusp of a change because of what has happened in Nigeria, a country that has been leading the way now and look like a big brother in Africa. But it's so easy to tip the pot, and it's dangerous what's happening there. And civil unrest, and if it is fueled by social media and the power of social media, it's embarrassing. I am glad to see what has happened in Tanzania, where you can have a smooth election, and much as some people say that it's not fair and principled and somebody gets 84% or 85%, but at least they've had some process, and that's what has kept Tanzania going. They've got some sanctity of the values that they hold. They respect some rules and some laws. I'm hoping the same will happen for Uganda. But in my business, the incidents that have happened was during Amin's time. I lost my father. In Obote's time, I was captured, taken away, and my family thought they'd lost me. For 9 days, I disappeared. Nobody knew where I was with all the efforts. So those to me were life-changing moments that made me become more alert about security. And I'm glad that during the NRM days, we've not had such hair-raising incidents. They are few and far between. I know they have affected some people where you hear people are taken to security houses, but those are few and far between, and they are bad apples, incidents 1 or 2 that happen. But when the state machinery is working against its own people, that is a tragedy and a real travesty of justice. You cannot turn to the police when the police are the ones killing you, or that your national army is the one killing you. And that's a wrong thing when it's being done systematically like that. Now, typically, one generation builds a business, the next one destroys it. That's been the story in Africa. But also, we've not been in business for that long. Think about it. Africans were not allowed to do business in Uganda in the 1900s. It was a preserve of the Asian community. So until there were some demonstrations. And then when we got independence, there was still a handful of African businessmen. I remember my father in 1972, 73, going into business fully. And he was one of the few successful business people. And he was trading basic things from commodities, moving commodities, sugar, rice, products up country, bringing cattle to Kampala. Things that they were doing were very mundane, the way I see them. And we only started breaking that barrier in 1980s. The Chikubu hub has done well. Largely, they were not very well educated, but they have had some discipline, and they've built a business culture amongst them. So I must give them respect or kudos for what they have done. Now, the challenge is, how do we have intergenerational businesses like the Madivanis, like the Mokwanos? It's not easy for us to do, and that's the task we've got to do. And at times, we'll send our children to the best schools all over the world, bring them back, and then they are not interested in the business. They're not interested in looking after your cattle and the businesses you are doing. So what do? Then we've got to look at Plan B. Plan B is having proper governance, structures, professional people to run the businesses. Your children remain shareholders, and you have a structure that will hold in trust their interest, and or probably list the company so that even other people are involved, so that there is continuity of these businesses. But holding together family-owned businesses is not an easy thing. And there are so many group discussions today and studies going on about family-owned businesses in Africa, and how can we make them succeed? How can we make them intergenerational? What checks and measures must we put in place so that they do not collapse when the founder collapses? How do we have the founder's mentality continue beyond the founder? And that's a challenge that I'm dealing with today. Trying to see how can I put in place a structure that can outlive me, that will go beyond just my legacy or my name, It's not about hubris, not about my success. It's about making sure that the people who we employ will have jobs tomorrow. Our contribution to that government tax coffers will be there tomorrow with certainty. Our businesses will be secure and will be evolving with the times, the requirements of people, whether it is services or products that we provide. These are the things I think about today. And I've got to put in place a mechanism of people that I've developed confidence in to run with my businesses, to feel that they can play a role in guiding and in mentoring my businesses. Not just my children, but my businesses. The staff I have, the key staff, to make them totally aligned with you so that there's that continuity. They grow with you. They feel they're part of the fabric. They share in the success. It can't just be about you. And that's what we've got to start doing in Africa. A lot more of that, especially with the family-owned business. Unfortunately, many people don't want to talk about it, and they think it's taboo. And when you talk about it, it's like writing a will, you're probably going to die. I don't think the two are connected. You can plan early about what happens after you pass on. One thing is certain, we will pass on at a certain time. So the earlier we plan and put it in writing and put a structure in place and talk to someone you confide in, the better. Then you don't have all this turmoil that's left behind. And you see so many children coming out of the woodwork claiming to be also children and wives and all these things that have been typical of African situations. I think there's a class of Africans today that has evolved, and you've got to have structure and you've got to lead by example. And the captains of business today, I think, are all thinking along this line, where we have a hybrid. We would love, of course, our children to come in and follow in our footsteps and continue doing the heavy lifting, doing the work that we have done so that we can provide services and goods to the public that has come to trust us with their resources. But we cannot force our children to do that. They've got to be allowed the opportunity to choose their own career path, to choose their calling, to have a life of meaning for them, not an extension of our life. So it's a balance, a hybrid. Those who want to come in the business, you have the privilege of being my children. But it's not automatic. You must learn to work, you must respect the structure that is there, and you must have the discipline to follow it through. Those who don't want are free to continue. My daughter wanted to be a teacher, and I didn't want her to be a teacher because I said, how you even pay for the shoes you're wearing? You can't afford when you're a teacher, especially if you're going to be a teacher in a secondary school. So it was really hard to convince her that you've got to do a business degree. I didn't mind. She did a business degree and she did teaching. And she wants to do teaching. That's where her passion is. So do it. It's very respectable and a very noble cause. But you must also have an eye on financial literacy. You must understand the language of money. Otherwise, you won't be able to give an impact, as big an impact to the society, the community that has come to trust you. So getting that balance right is not easy. My sons are slowly learning the business. They're getting involved. They understand the business. They've graduated. But the main thing a parent can give to a child is knowledge. And what has killed African society is having this mindset of scarcity. And that's why people scramble and fight for everything. We should have a mindset of abundance. What you have is already enough, more than enough. However little it is more than enough. Apportion it well and build on that. Use it as building blocks for the future, not fighting and becoming greedy. Then whatever you'd have will never be enough. And that's been the problem of Africa. I don't have very many security tips because I don't think of them as security tips. To me, it's just natural now, partly because of the way I've lived my life. And everybody is a prisoner to their own biography. So I'm a prisoner to my biography. I've been abducted. I've lived through the Idi Amin's regime. I've seen people I love disappear for no reason or just be killed for no reason. So I've learned to be a bit more cautious. So what happens is the habits you form. Your habits are the most important thing that will protect you going forward. And the earlier you develop good habits, the better. I chose not to drink by decision, just a choice, not to deal with alcohol because I didn't want to impair my judgment at any time. It was a choice I made quite early in life, 13, 14, when I was in senior one. And many of my peers started losing their judgment, and I'd see what they were doing because of alcohol. Some have the head for it, others just don't have. So I didn't think I had the head for alcohol. I chose not to. That was number one. Number two, train your eye to notice the details. If you don't train your eye, you go through life like a passenger. You don't know where you're going. You get on any bus and go in any direction. As long as you're on a bus, you're going. You've got to know where you want to go. You've got to know where you're coming from. You've got to know where you are. You've got to be conscious. I see people who, they stole my phone. Where were you looking in town? The thieves here, they also scan and they tell someone who's not paying attention. You've got a phone, a mobile phone, it's in your pocket or it's in the car and you're not paying attention, your window's half, they'll take it. You've got to learn to be alert, continuously alert. Train your eye to have your senses all working for you. Your sense of smell, your sense of touch, your sense of sight. Use them, they are primal. And if you use them well, you learn to live a careful life. You don't fall suddenly, you're walking on the step and you miss a step and you fail. Yes, it can happen, an accident. But too many people are clumsy. They don't take life seriously. But if you train yourself at an early age to pay attention to detail, it will help you succeed not only in business, but in life. You don't just go with everybody. You want to choose a partner. Choose a person who you think is the right person for you. When you're looking for a wife, you don't just go anywhere in the bar and meet somebody and say, I'm going to marry you. You learn to practice, meet people, interact. You work on it. If you want to look good, you have to go to the gym. You've got to work on it. You've got to not just think of the gym, go and work it out. An hour every day. It will take time. Eventually, your body starts feeling much better and you actually look a bit better. So you can't have certain things without doing the work. And that's how I think you've got to train your eye to be conscious of security and where you are in society, where you are, what environment you're in. When you're in Dubai, you are a bit more relaxed because generally security is so much better. Anybody thinks of security or stealing, they'll chop their hand off. That is probably not going to happen today. But that mindset helps them clean up their image. Here, people will take a chance because they can get away with it. So you've got to know what it is. When you're in South Africa, you've got to be a lot more conscious of security. When you're in New York, you're also conscious of security, but in a different way. You could get mugged and someone just because he's bigger than your size, get away with it. So it's still a jungle out there. So with experience, with time, you learn to train yourself and form good habits. So that when you go to bed at night, you know the key areas you've got to look out for. It's just a reflex. When you go to sleep, your antennas are alert when you're asleep. A noise happens, you know how to respond, what to do. I have dogs. I believe in dogs. I have security guards at home, but I have to have dogs because dogs are the early warning system. The dogs will not kill, attack and deter a thief strong enough, but they'll warn the guards because the guards will fall asleep. You can't be a guard every single day. Nothing has happened January to December, year in, year out, and you're going to be alert all night. But the dogs will do that. If you train your dogs well, they sleep during the day. At night, they'll keep moving on patrol. And the slightest movement, not that they can contain the situation, but they'll alert the guard and the guards respond. So there are certain things you've got to do. And it's about investing your time and your mind in something. Do it well and do it properly, and then you can pack it. Then you focus on something else. There's no point in burglar proofing all the windows in a house but one, and you leave that one. What was the point then of doing the burglar proofing in the other windows? So you've got to do a comprehensive exercise when you do it. Do things well first time round. Apply your mind. That discipline, that habit is very useful. I'd like to end by saying, I salute those who go the distance. I think it's Malcolm Gladwell in his book that says, to be successful at anything, whether it is in athletics or at work and business, you've got to spend 10,000 hours, which is typically 10 years. Sekanyolya has done 20 years. That's why they are at the forefront of security in the private sector in Uganda. And I must salute them, the founders, the proprietors, the management team, the board, for delivering on this. It's not easy to run a business for 20 years and excel. Too many businesses start and fail, especially in Africa, and more so in Uganda. So anybody who can run a business successfully and keep it growing and shine that light after 20 years is doing an excellent job. Remember the 10,000 hour rule. You've got to apply yourself if you're going to go to the pinnacle of success. Congratulations, and I wish you good luck.